Oh, yes. Woohoo! This is so much fun. Who's already made a new friend? Raise your hand. Woo, yeah. My name is Sophia Lee, for those who don't know me. Woo! Woo, 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 woo! I am so excited for this conversation because I personally need to have this conversation. Like every time I'm going through anything in life, I'm like, Liz, you're an Aquarius, I'm a Leo, we're opposite signs on the zodiac wheel, and we just balance each other out. And so this is exactly why we're having this conversation today, how to thrive, not just survive in the year of the fire horse. So a quick shout out and thank you to 929, which is this beautiful space that you're in. Sean, thank you. Hal Ren, thank you to all the staff over here. Who's been here before? Anyone's been here before? No? Everyone's first time? At 929? We love it here. Woo! Okay. Oh, he says crying emoji, hearts emoji. We are here with best-selling author Liz Tran to unpack the rare 2026 year of the fire horse and introduce you to her new book, AQ. Did everyone get a book while checking in? Cool. Okay, awesome. Liz coaches CEOs and founders of the fastest growing companies in the world, has worked with more than 200 executives, and they have raised more than $1 billion in funding. She's also the author of The Karma of Success and is a keynote speaker for Fortune 500 companies. So just a quick recap. The last time it was the year of the fire horse was in the year 1966. Was anyone alive in 1966? Don't worry, you were like 3 years old. Right? Do you remember anything that happened from that year, Simon? Yeah, what happened in 1966? Okay, you were in first grade. Do you remember anything that happened from a social and political standpoint? The Vietnam War. Okay, cool. So the year of the fire horse, it's always associated with extreme intensity, rapid change, and the disruption of existing social or political orders. Some events that happened in 1966 was that the Cultural Revolution in China started. Mao Zedong initiated a decade of social and political upheaval. The Civil Rights Movement was happening, and this was the year that the Black Panther Party was formed. And the Vietnam War escalation that Simon was talking about. The US increased troop levels and also faced global condemnation. And does that sound familiar with what's happening now? Woo, let's finally hand the mic over to Liz. Let's just start off like what the F is happening with astrology and world events happening right now.
Thank you. Okay. So I think we want to just ground ourselves in where we are right now. As Sophia said, it's every 60 years. And that's because there are 12 animals in the zodiac. And then you have 10 stems. So there are 5 elements, basically metal, wood, earth, fire, water, and they rotate every 2 years. And so basically it takes 12 times 5 to get to 60. Here we are. And it's really significant because we are in the year of the horse. Fire is the element that makes it even more doubly the year of the horse. So imagine that this horse energy is about movement, action, confidence, and then you get the fire energy next to that. And for anyone here who is a fire sign or who has a lot of fire in their chart, like you're a fire sign, then you're going to be feeling this even more explicitly.
Who's a fire sign here?
Yeah.
Fire tracks fire. I'm like, obviously, so many fires in here. Okay.
And what's important to note is that each of these years do not exist on their own. You can't just think, okay, I'm in the year of the horse. What you actually need to think about is you're at the pinnacle of your 12-year cycle. So we start off with the year of the rat, and then you have 6 years to basically plant the seeds, build a structure, create who you are. And then here we arrive at year 7, the year of the horse. And this is the time to make everything happen. This is where we take everything we've learned and we've invested in over the past 6 years, and then we bring it to reality. And then from there, the next 5 years are very much about integration, right? You live the life that you created for yourself. And the Lunar New Year happens later than the Western New Year. So if anyone has been wondering, okay, I haven't felt this for myself, it's because it just became the new year. What was it? 12 days ago?
12
days ago. And so this energy is catching now. And the invitation here is, how can you be the boldest, most confident, most action-oriented version of yourself over the next 12 months, which is actually a really exciting invitation because we've been planning, we've been planting, we've been preparing for this moment. And so know that everything that you have experienced for the past 6 years has gotten you here. So maybe I'll actually invite you to reflect on that. What was going on with you 6 years ago? Like, was there a beginning? Did you feel that start or a beginning? Like, when did you meet Lawrence?
Lawrence, when did we meet?
September 2019.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the
I have
beginning,
like mom
right?
brain. I'm like,
Yeah. Because I remember 6 years ago at my birthday party, you were like, oh, I think I'm going to move in with this guy. And I was like, oh, you guys are serious? And you're like, yeah, he's really different. He's special. And I was like, oh, okay. And that was also, for me, it was the year I got married and started writing, like became a writer in earnest with my first book. And so for everyone, I want to invite you to think back 6 years ago, even if it wasn't, giant seeds that you were planting, what were sort of the beginnings that you were preparing for 6 years ago? Because that will be some of the clues that bring you to where you want to take action in this year.
okay, so where were we in 2020, which was the year of the rat?
Yeah.
As you mentioned, the Western New Year, the Gregorian calendar, it's only been 2 months of 2026. And then in the Lunar New Year, it's only been 12 days. And I feel like every single day it gets more charged. I know that we just entered Mercury retrograde, and we're in Mercury retrograde until March 20th. There's a total lunar eclipse on this Tuesday, March 3rd. And everyone was so thrilled about the momentum of the fire horse. But now that we're in Mercury retrograde in Pisces, I feel like it's asking us to pause. So what should we actually be doing?
I think of retrogrades as the moment to do all the words that start with like reflect, revisit. So Mercury retrograde is giving us this time in this window over the next month or so until March 20th, right? To be able to actually think differently and see all the status quo or all the things that we have taken for granted in our lives from a different lens. Now we're shifting from, the Chinese astrology that we're talking about into more Western astrology. But on April 26th, we have a really big moment. And this is when we have Uranus in Gemini. And so it's this idea that all of us are going to be called to change the way that we communicate. And so what we'll see then is people will not want to get news and our information from gatekeepers anymore. And I think we're already starting to see this, but there's this really profound shift that's happening. Similar to the year of the fire horse, the last time this happened was about 60 years ago as well. And we are all going to be experiencing a different way that we showcase our voice. And so the invitation around April 26th is think about how you've been communicating, how you've been expressing yourself, how you get your information and how you process it, how you learn, and invite in a different way of doing things. So that's the first date I'll say.
April 26th.
April 26th.
I'm like, everyone mark that on their calendar. I see Sydney doing it. She's like pulling up her calendar. April 26th.
So again, maybe it's not explicit action, but the core question that you're asking yourself is, what do I need to say? And how do I want to say it? And then connected to that, what have I been afraid to say? In what way have I been afraid to show up as my true, authentic self and to have a voice? And so those are these beautiful questions to ask yourself. You're coming out of Mercury retrograde for a month then, and then you will be feeling the shift in the way that you want to express yourself. And maybe it's like a relationship that you need to have a different dynamic in, right? Or maybe on a broader scale, it's a way that you have been, maybe you write a Substack and you want to try something different, but you'll feel this way that you normally communicate, whether it's interpersonally or in a larger network and dynamic. And also we will not have patience for like bullshit from media in that same way, where we're basically like, no, we want our information clear and direct, and we are not going to just believe everything that we see. So there's almost like this awakening that happens on an individual level, but also on a collective level too, which is very cool.
What about from a personal level, what does that mean that we do not want to receive our information from gatekeepers?
So when I think of communication means two things, right? It's how you take in knowledge, and then it's how you express it back. And so we will be shifting on those two dimensions. How we take it in, we'll have a lot less patience for things that we don't believe to be right or true, whether that comes from like a friendship that is no longer working or a dynamic that feels a little bit toxic in your family or whatever it might be. There will be this feeling where you're like, I'm not putting up with that anymore. I don't want that. I'm going to express that like we need to grow and we need to evolve from this. And then in terms of the way that we express, it's also going to be a lot more direct. There's going to be like this clarity there where you're not going to mince around and dance around and be like, hey, do you think you might be able to help? You know, if you want to, you'll just be like, this is what I need. Right.
Yeah.
And so think about that clarity. How can you shortcut what you want and what you need to having someone else understand that in as few steps as possible? And then the reverse in terms of information from gatekeepers, how can we just like get a very clear, real, transparent understanding of what is actually happening in the world, right? Whether it's like your workplace, right? You might see employees demanding that they need certain information from the people they work for, right? Or it's from our politicians, it's from our governments, it's from social media. And so we'll feel this shift where people will just not really, they won't put up with things that they feel are being held from them, or it's not the complete accurate information.
Okay.
So that's the first date. Should I move on to the next one?
Next stage. Does everyone have their calendars ready? I'm like, how many? Yes, go for it.
Okay. So then the big date of the year that is really like, okay, this is the most fire horse day that we could possibly have in all of 2026 is June 30th. And it's basically when Jupiter moves into Leo. Jupiter is the planet of expansion.
Oh, it's someone's birthday. She's like,
you have to tell us what happens to you that day. Hopefully it's something really remote. No, it'll be a good thing because there's just so much energetic alignment. So again, remember, horse energy is action, movement. Fire energy is like duplicative of that, right? It's like doubling down on that energy. And so then you have Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion. Anything that Jupiter touches, it grows. It's like abundance, love, energy. So whenever you have Jupiter like in a certain place in your chart, it means that that's where you're really lucky. And then Jupiter is going into the sign, Leo, that it feels so comfortable in because Leo is fire. It's the lion, right? It's regal. And it gives Jupiter this extra push that feels very aligned with Fire Horse because Jupiter and Leo is actually ruled by the sun, right? So sun is fire. So you have all these energies that perfectly map to the Fire Horse energy. So June 30th kicks off a 6-week period from June 30th to August 12th, when if there's anything that you want to put out into the world, that's your time to do it. Launch it.
wait, just tell us more. Like, just put it out into the world.
Yeah, put it out to the world. And don't think so much about it. Like, your time up until June 30th is about planning. It's about preparing for that. And so hence that April 26th date, think about like what you want to say and how you want to say it, right? You don't need to ship anything yet, but you need to know what it is that you want to say, what you want to communicate, what your voice is there for in the world, like why you exist in the world and what you want your voice to say. And so then start preparing and knowing that like in that window of June 30th through August 12th, that's when you're actually going to put it out into the world. And it's not going to be perfect. So don't expect like it's going to be the most evolved version of whatever it is that you're building. It can just be like a shift in what you want in the world. But know that intentionally you're creating something different in your life in that six-week window, and know that it's going to be iterated on, right? It's like in startups, they say that, you know, you have like your alpha or your beta or your V1. That's actually what you're pushing. And then that 6-week window, you are testing, you're iterating, and you're learning and you're improving. And then that brings us basically to the eclipses that happen at the end of August or middle August, end of August. And during that eclipse season, you're going to look back on this, whatever it is that you shipped in those 6 weeks, and you're going to get a lot of revelations. You're going to be like, okay, I see. This is what I need to change. Okay, this is what I need to do differently. And eclipses are all about awakening. It helps us see something through a new lens. So suddenly we'll have all this information about what worked and what didn't work in that 6-week project period. And then by the time we get to August 30th, that is an invitation where we have a trine between Jupiter and Saturn, Jupiter representing, you know, that abundance, and Saturn representing structure, where you can say, okay, now I can put it into a structure, right? So basically you're going from end of June to end of August. And in those 2 months, you will launch something into the world. You'll iterate on it. You'll see big revelations. And then finally, you'll have everything you need to put that into a structure that can carry on for the next 5 years beyond the year of the fire horse. Because what we're asked to do is to take all this kind of like restless, impulsive, active energy that comes with the fire horse. But by the time you get towards the end of the year, you're like, okay, I need to take this and just put it into something that is a little bit more grounded, structured, etc. And so the first invitation to do that is August 30th.
Whew. Okay.
It's a lot.
Do we all process that? Everyone? Up until through Mercury retrograde, should we take it a little bit easy?
Yes. I mean, definitely take it easy, especially with everything that is going on right now in the world. I think we all just like need to have a breath and just orient ourselves, because one of the biggest challenges of the year of the fire horse is burning out. Because think about like a flame when it gets too hot, right? It can actually like really cause bad consequences to us, to everything. And so you can take that energy and use it as fuel. But what you have to do throughout the year is very closely monitor when you're on the verge of burnout or not.
I want to know what everyone does on April 26th. I'm like, what did everyone do in this room? Liz, let's talk about AQ, because I think there's a reason why AQ, your book, was born this year of all years. You wrote this book while you were postpartum, while you were breastfeeding. You would type in one hand while you were breastfeeding in another arm. Like, what was the urgency? Why did AQ need to be born this year?
In a lot of ways, like I didn't plan for it to happen. I didn't really plan for it from like an intellectual standpoint. It was very intuitive that it happened this way. And when my daughter I'm pregnant again. My due date's actually in 2 days, but I like
speaking of 2 days,
which is crazy because it's also the eclipse, and I'm like a little nervous about that. But I gave birth to my daughter, my oldest child, January 2024. And once she came into the world, my whole viewpoint and perspective changed, because I was 39 years old and becoming a mom for the first time. And suddenly I had to take almost 4 decades of living in a very specific way, self-oriented, and switch into, a secondary role where suddenly everything's about my daughter, and it's what I really wanted. But it was a big change. And I knew I wanted to write a book about the importance of changing and why the agility quotient, which is your capacity to handle change, disappointment, and uncertainty, is more important than how smart you are. It's more important than your IQ. And I had known that for some time, but I really only felt that once I became a mom, because you could be the smartest person in the world. You can be a genius, but unless you are willing to adapt and be agile, you're not going to be a very good parent, right? Because you're going to have all these certain expectations of how things should be. You could be so knowledgeable, so educated about how to parent perfectly, but unless you can kind of go with the flow, you're not going to be able to meet your baby's needs. And so when she was about 8 weeks old, I just started getting these ideas for the book. It would be late at night. She'd wake up at midnight, then she'd wake up at 3, then she'd wake up at 6, and I would nurse her. And in those moments, I would see with so much clarity some of the ideas for the book, and I would just be typing them furiously. And I think she was actually the conduit for it. There's this old proverb that says that every baby brings their own bread, which I think is really beautiful, meaning that even if you don't know how you're going to take care of your child, they will help you find a way, from a resources perspective. And she was bringing this bread of knowledge to me that was so, so beautiful. And then when she was about, I want to say 6 months old, I sold the book and I started furiously writing it to deliver it to my publisher. And the book was meant to come out actually in 2025. And I planned the pregnancy so that the book would come out in the fall. I would have a few months and then I would give birth. Perfect, right? Then the publisher said, I think we should actually move it to February 3rd. And I was like, great, my due date is March 3rd. and that's the thing is like, you can only have so much control over what the universe wants to do. And so the book in many ways was meant to be like, coming out into the world as the year of the fire horse was happening. And I think this child was meant to be coming into the world at the same time. And I think it's especially clear now because in the moment when I was writing the book in the beginning, Trump hadn't been elected yet. We were just preparing for the election. And I kind of thought, if he wins, I think people are really going to need this book because there will be so much instability and so much uncertainty. And I was telling Sophia, it's so funny because, I launched the book in early February and literally like the 3 days after the Lunar New Year began, I was approached with so many opportunities for the book. It was like the floodgates opened because we finally made a shift from the snake energy into the fire horse energy. Because AQ is very much a fire horse concept. It's about thinking about how you've lived your life up until now and giving yourself the agency to know that you can change that. Because AQ is all about taking whatever is your status quo and deciding, I don't have to do it this way anymore. I can change. And my ability to change and grow and develop myself, it's my birthright. We all have the ability to do that. And there's no year where we will ever feel that sort of innate capability more so than this year.
Yes, Liz. I'm like, yes to all of that. Yes, I feel like the energy of your book and the birth into the world has been just exponential since in the past 12 days. Financial Times just named it one of the top books to read. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No small feat. You say that the book is designed to be a lived exercise in agility, a companion text for anyone who could use grounding in an unstable world. I just curious for everyone here, can you just raise your hand if your profession is changing around you and you wonder what you should do? Okay. Keep your hand raised if this applies to you. You want to make a big shift, but you don't know where to begin. It's been a while since you've learned a new skill. Okay. You're unsure of what the future holds for you. And you're starting to feel left behind by the constant changes in the world. Cool. Okay. So it's I feel like everyone raised their hand at some point. Where did this ideology come from? You've worked with over 200 founders and executives, but what did you call agility quotient before you coined that term?
Yes, 100%. So I have kind of two answers to this. I'll give the professional answer and then I'll give the personal answer. The professional answer is I first realized how important this skill, quote unquote, is about 10 years ago. And I was working in venture capital and my boss, who is the founder of the firm, said to me, I want you to go through our portfolio and figure out what all the most successful founders have in common. And we were early investors in companies like Instagram, Spotify, Skims, OpenAI now, investments that happened after I left. But this is a fantastic firm that had bet on a lot of really successful companies. So I started giving personality assessments to tons of founders in the portfolio and then having conversations with them to talk about what was your childhood like? What's your personality like? What motivates you? And at the end of a 2-year research project, I couldn't find anything that they had in common. We wanted a checklist that was okay, is this person ambitious? Did this person study computer science at a top school? There was none of that. People were all different in terms of the people who had actually succeeded, quote unquote, and getting their companies to the next level. And then I left that role and I became an executive coach. And I started working with some of these founders from a coaching perspective. And I gave them those personality assessments again. And I saw that in 2-3 years, they had changed so much. And then I realized that this is what every successful person, not just founders, have in common, is that they're always changing. And not only are they always changing, when change happens to them, they accept it and embrace it versus pushing it away. For years, I thought about, what do I call this? Because it goes by so many names, right? Agility, adaptability. And then I was like, we have to give it a title that expresses how important it is. It is just as important as how smart you are. It is just as important as how good you are with people. And so we call it AQ because it is on par to your IQ and your EQ. And in my life too, I saw this firsthand. I grew up as a daughter of a single mother. We lived in Section 8 housing. And from a very young age, I knew that people could tell that we were different, that we didn't have as much as other people. And I could pick up on that. Like I knew that my teachers and the students around me saw me differently. And so I thought, maybe I can just try to be really smart, and then people won't notice that I'm very poor. And I really leaned on my IQ for as long as I could. I did well in school. I studied really hard. I always raised my hand. I focused on my career. I tried to read lots of books and become very knowledgeable, tried to always have good grammar. And that took me to age 30 when I was working at this venture capital firm. And I was around all these people who had gone to Harvard and Stanford Business School. I didn't have any of those pedigrees. And I thought, I really can't compete on IQ, but the way I grew up makes me super agile and very adaptable. So whenever someone said, hey, who can do this project? I was like, I'll do it. I know how to do it. And then I would spend all night teaching myself how to do it. Or, people would be like, oh, okay, Liz, can you help me with like X, Y, and Z? I was like, of course. And then I would like just dive into it. And then I started seeing for myself that, maybe I didn't fit in from like the perspective of, how we normally default think about intelligence, but there was something so accepting about the concept of AQ. And I think that that's true for a lot of us. Like oftentimes AQ gets built through hardship. And that's a really beautiful thing, because we have all, no matter what it is, doesn't matter socioeconomically, whatever, how much privilege you have, we've all gone through tough things in life. And a beautiful way of looking at that is remembering that every single one of those moments is building your AQ and making you an incredibly capable person.
I felt so seen by your book because I didn't have like a fancy degree in college. I didn't get my master's, but like I do well in the world, but I think it's really because I grew up in 4 different states in 2 different countries. And it's like change was the only constant. So I felt like, oh yeah, like I told my mom, I was like, see, I don't need a master's degree. Like it's all about agility quotient. We all don't approach change the same. So what are the 4 different AQ archetypes and how do you characterize them and where did those come from?
Yes. So everyone who's listening, listen to the descriptions and think about which one you might be. And then you can take a quiz later to confirm it. There's a quiz at aqquiz.com. The first one is the firefighter. And this is the type that's really good at emergency situations. It's so funny because your husband is a literal firefighter. And the chief is here too. But it's about the skill of, think about a firefighter rushes into the scene of emergency and they're so calm, cool, and collected. They know exactly what to do. And we actually see people becoming more and more of this archetype because the world demands it. Right. But the downside of being a firefighter is that sometimes you're so good at change in emergency situations that you might not be as planful because you're like, everything's going to change anyway. Why bother making a plan? Why bother reflecting? And to the point where chaos can often feel really good because you're really good at it. You're really good at fixing it. The opposite of the firefighter is the novelist. I'm a novelist. Novelists do very poorly in emergency situations. They're bad at what we call reactive change. This is a change that happens to you, but they're really good at proactive change. So they have an agenda. They have a 5-year plan. They have goals. They sit down regularly and they plan out their whole week. And if anything goes off of schedule, it is debilitating. Novelists are like, no, that's not the story I wrote. They always want to be the ones writing their own plot. But when something else comes in and there's a detour, they get very, very upset. Next type is the one that we typically think of as like the highest AQ, though they can all be very, very high AQ. And it's the astronaut. The astronaut is good at both proactive and reactive change. Think about an astronaut. They're at the forefront of innovation, kind of just floating around in space with like a very slim tether to reality. And in fact, they're so comfortable in change and uncertainty that they might not even register that they're taking a risk when everyone else around them is like, how do you do that? That's so scary. And they're like, what? Is this a risk? I didn't even notice it. And the downside though, is that they can be so fast sometimes that the people around them can be confused. Like, wait, didn't you just want to do this the other day? Why are you pivoting? Why are you changing? I can't quite follow you. So in fact, to be even higher AQ, astronauts need to learn to slow down a little bit and help galvanize the people around them. And then finally, the last type is the neurosurgeon. They are motivated by excellence and diligence. They will prepare, and they're perfectionists. So they might seem very slow and low AQ, but they're actually so resilient because once they actually do decide that they want to do something, nothing will stop them. Like one of my friends is a neurosurgeon, and he waited until like his 40s to find love. And he finally met someone and he decided, this is the person I want to be with. And she was not interested in him, but he did not give up until he won her heart. And it took like years, but now they have 3 children together and they're so happy and they've been together for 10 years. And so that's kind of that neurosurgeon energy is like, might take you 10 years to buy an apartment, might take you 6 years to leave your job, even after you decided that you don't want to be there anymore. But once you've made that mental leap in your mind that you're going to do it, nothing will ever stop you. So the beautiful thing about these archetypes is they all have explicit talents and strengths. So knowing yours will help you with the fire horse energy because you'll know what tools you have to make big change in your life. And then you can also know some areas that are a little bit of your Achilles heel that you can sort of work on over the next year as well.
How do you think each of these archetypes should embrace the year of the fire horse differently or the same? Like, I feel like the neurosurgeon, like the intensity might be a lot for them.
Yes. Yes. I love that you intuited that. Let's start there.
Okay.
Neurosurgeon, yes, this energy can be a lot for you. And just know, I just want to remind you that if you're a neurosurgeon, you are so much more prepared than you feel. You're probably 10 times more prepared than any other person in your life. And so just do it. Know that you've already run through all the scenarios. You have everything that you need. And your version of good enough is everyone else's version of perfect. Have you ever heard the phrase, like, if you want to, like, it's like if you want to boil a frog, you like put them in the water and you slowly turn up the temperature. Like if you're a neurosurgeon, just do that. Like start with like something that feels like 10% faster than you want, then 20%. And so that's actually part of the neurosurgeon is you want to just slowly venture out beyond your comfort zone, but without pushing so hard that you freak out and then come all the way back in. The next one we'll do is the astronaut. This is definitely the year for astronauts because that sort of bold, courageous energy. Astronauts don't really, they're very instinctual. They're very intuitive. They make decisions more from the body and the heart and passion than they do logic oftentimes. And that's actually very fire horse energy. Fire horse asks for us to all move forward without second guessing ourselves too much. And so what I will say to the astronaut is like, remember that the shadow side of action is recklessness and impulsivity. So just dial it back a little bit. Keep being you. You will thrive in this year. This year was meant for you. And just ask yourself, okay, is this being a little too reckless? Is this being a little too impulsive? Novelists like me, plan less. That's it. Like you cannot dictate how everything is going to unfold. And remember that like if you're a novelist, you want to write the whole story, but maybe the story is actually better written when other people can be the narrator too. So invite in the perspectives from the people around you. Like if you have a plan in your mind, like let's say you're a novelist and you want to build a business on the side, you know, something like a side hustle. Ask your friends, what do they think? Invite in other perspectives and opinions because you can get a little lost or myopic just in your own viewpoint. And so for the novelist to really expand in the way that fire horse energy is asking you to change and grow, you need to be open to other people's opinions as well. And then finally, the firefighter, like what I will ask of the firefighter to do is to take this time from now until, remember what you said, June 30th, and really get clear on what it is that you want. Spend a lot of time reflecting, spend a lot of time taking care of yourself. Spend a lot of time outside of the normal workflow of just being busy. Firefighters are really motivated by impact. So they feel really good about themselves when they can create change, when they can solve problems, when they can help other people. But remember that it's okay to just help yourself too. You know, you don't have to be there for everyone. Actually take these next few months and try to care for yourself in the same way so that you get really clear about your vision for the rest of the year.
Liz, do you think a high AQ is a nature or nurture?
Well, I think that it's both. But what I will say, first of all, is that nurture is extremely important. Like you mentioned that you lived in 4 different states, different countries. The other day I was talking to someone and she was like a work colleague that I got introduced to in my network. And she was like, I'm an astronaut. I'm so high AQ. And I was like, how did you grow up? And she was like, oh, I lived on a sailboat. My parents raised me on a sailboat. And I was like, of course, right? And then so oftentimes it's a reaction. Hers was like, you know, I never know what stability is, so I'm just going to go with the flow. And she's really raised her kids that way too. With her first child, they were actually nomadic for a couple years, like living in a RV, driving around with this baby. And she feels very comfortable that way. You can also develop it in reaction to how it is. Like I'm a novelist. I love planning because my mom was the worst planner. And I think my reaction to that was like, okay, if I could just control something, right? So either you are developing an alignment with, you know, how you were when you're growing up, or it can be a reaction opposite to that. But your archetype can change. So it can
I was going to ask that. Does it change, your archetype change based off of the season you're in?
Yes, very much so. The season you're in, even the community that you're in. So maybe you're required to be a certain way at work, but you're a different way that you show up in your family of origin. Or you're a different way when it comes to your relationships, right? And it may not be so striking, but you can feel those elements of the other archetypes coming through. And a lot of people take the quiz and they say, like, Liz, I actually feel like 2 different archetypes in different parts of my life. Or I felt like XYZ before, and here I am this way now. I actually think I'm very much an astronaut when it comes to my work. But I am definitely very much a novelist. Like I think that's my core default. And I really see that in the way that like I parent and the way that I show up in relationships. Like with my friends, I'm always like, the way that I bond with them, I'm like, what are your dreams? What are your goals? How do we get you there? You know, like that's like why I'm a coach, right? Like that's like the novelist at work. I always want to do that novelist, but then a little bit like with my writing, I can be a little more free form and spontaneous.
You talk about how in the book, Dev, your partner, is a firefighter, and then you're a novelist. So you guys have complementary archetypes. For romantic partnerships, or, you know, your co-founder, is there an optimal pairing of archetypes?
I think that you're in a moment where you're like lower AQ, you're going to be drawn to people who are more like you. So novelists are going to like other novelists. They're also going to like neurosurgeons because in the same way, they're very planful, they're very organized, very detail oriented. Astronauts are going to like other astronauts, and they're going to get frustrated by neurosurgeons who are always trying to get them to think about the details. But when you are at peak AQ, you have a lot of appreciation for the other types around you. And I think that's actually better. Like in relationships and in teams, we should strive to have as many varieties of archetypes as possible in our lives. So even if you are the same archetype as your partner, for instance, maybe you want friends who are different archetypes, or that you'll value your sister's opinion and call her when you need to hear what a neurosurgeon might think about something. So I think we should all be building our board of agility advisors, the people close to us who represent the viewpoints of the other archetypes. And, you know, for the people who are close to you, just appreciating them more. I feel like I would get so frustrated with Dev because of the way that he parented Taya. Like I'd be like, do you have diapers in the bag? You know, I'm taking her out for the day. And he's like, oh no, I forgot them, but I know where we can get some, you know, and like just so happy go lucky. And he's like, oh, I didn't pack water, but like, this means we're going to stop for a snack, you know, like just so positive. And I was just like, well, I mean, couldn't we have avoided that with like 5 minutes before we left the door? But I started to see that this is like a beautiful thing about him, is that he's so in the moment and he's so good at problem solving in real time, and he never gets flustered, even when she does something really unpredictable. And I think that through this archetype work, I actually grew to just love him more. I was just like, oh, like you don't have to be like me. What you do is so beautiful.
Oh, I heard my husband laughing because that's exactly him. He's like, forgot the diapers, but don't worry. Like we'll like have a pit stop, right?
Exactly.
You mentioned that there's full AQ and low AQ, and there's different stages, like the avoidance stage and the fighting stage. Like, how do we recognize where we are in our agility quotient? Like,
Yes. So the lowest form of agility is, as you mentioned, the avoidance stage. And that's when there's change, disappointment, uncertainty happening, and we just don't want to deal with it. So maybe it means like you're watching Netflix more than usual, or you're drinking a little bit more wine, or you're finding yourself avoiding the real meaty issues that need attention in your life. And you're like letting yourself focus on other stuff that's more trivial. Like you're getting pulled into like drama that isn't really the heart of what you need to face, right? Like that big, hairy problem. We all do that. And I think part of the time we get stuck in that lowest form of AQ because we don't feel capable. We don't feel like we have the ability to actually handle that change. So maybe there's like, you know, rumors of a layoff at work. And you're just like, I can't even think about that. Or even the stuff that's going on right now. Like, are we going to be in the middle of World War III? I don't know. But you're like, I don't want to look at the news. I'm just going to put my head down. And so what I would say is that in that moment, if you're in the avoidance stage, you need to think about how to take care of yourself and get yourself to equilibrium. Feel good about yourself and feel good in your life so that you can start to take action. And once you take action, that moves you to the next stage, which is the fighting stage. And this is when you are finally becoming proactive. You're making change. You're making decisions. But it doesn't feel good. You know, it's like, I think about this moment when I was like gearing up for my book launch, and there was just so much going on. I had so much work. And I was just annoyed. I was like, I hate this. Why is this happening to me? Why is my book coinciding with this pregnancy? Why is this pregnancy so hard? Why isn't it like last time when my pregnancy was easy? You know, like everything was like a very victim mindset where I was working really hard, but I was like so grumpy and so ungrateful.
And it's like everything you've ever wanted. Like
Yeah.
you made these choices. You wanted this to happen. Yeah.
Exactly. Like
But
how
you felt
beautiful.
resentful
Yes.
towards, yeah.
Exactly. I was like so resentful for these things that I really wanted, actually. And I saw myself as like, oh, I got to get through this. I got to like muscle through it. I got to like, it's so hard. And the difference is when you change your attitude to be more positive, that's when you reach full AQ. So what you're doing may not look different from the fighting stage. Your mindset has just shifted. So someone who's in the fighting stage and someone who's in full AQ, they might be physically doing the same things, like working on your book tour, you know, going out dating, trying to find the love of your life, whatever it is, you're taking action. But once you've decided to see life as something that's not happening to you, but something that's happening for you, that is full AQ.
It's like the levels of consciousness, like when life happens to me, when life happens through me, when life happens because of me. So, okay.
Yes.
So avoidance stage is if you don't have the capacity to deal with life, external circumstances, get self-aware and get back to equilibrium, focus on yourself. And if you're in fighting stage, you start becoming the victim to life. You are resentful of things that you wanted to go through. Then what should we do?
You should really try to change your mindset.
Okay, change your mindset.
Yeah, it's just about being positive and grateful. Like, I think, like, I mean, it sounds so silly because I think it's like such a, everyone talks about this in our culture, but like, I feel like my whole life was like saved by gratitude practices. And, you know, it's not to say that we should ignore that there are real hardships in the world, but there's also like a beautiful way to see what's happening to us as like a window or an opportunity. And it's not to just be like, oh yeah, like silver linings all the time.
Wait, but what's your gratitude practice? Because everyone, it's such a buzzword like, oh, I'm grateful, but how do you embody the gratitude? What does that look like on a day-to-day level?
What I do, and I started doing this in December, 2 months before my book came out, because I was like, I need to change my mindset. This is messed up. My head is not screwed on straight. And so what I started doing is I would write 3 things that I was proud of myself for every day. And literally, if I couldn't find anything to be proud of, I would just write, I made the bed, or I did the dishes, right? Like I got up and I went to all my meetings, even though I didn't want to. You know, I just tried to see something that I did well to appreciate in myself. And then I wrote 3 things that I was grateful for in life. And it didn't matter how big or small they were. I would just have to name 3 things. And sometimes I would repeat them, because you have to do this every day. So you might say, I'm grateful for my family. And the next day you might say, I'm grateful for my family again. But the whole point is just to spot those things in life. And then the last 3 things I would list are 3 reasons that I was excited about my work, because I was trying to focus on my work. And even if it was something like, I got an email from an old friend saying like, hi, how are you? Let's reconnect for coffee. Because when you start to tune into what you want to see, then you start to see more of it. And so maybe we'll just like do a little exercise right now to embody this. I want everyone to look around the room and spot as many things as you can that are green. So see if you can notice anything that you see as green in the room. It's hard because everything's so red right now,
Everyone's looking at Pyrrha.
Yeah, everyone's looking at Pyrrha. Okay, now close your eyes and then see if you can remember where those green things were. Okay, now with your eyes still closed, what is blue? You have no idea, right? You have no idea what was blue in the room because you were so focused on what was green. And so it's the same thing with my gratitude practice. It's like, if I train myself to start looking for like the positive things in life, eventually you'll just start to see them automatically.
Last question before I want to go into some audience Q&A, but what's a ritual or consistent action we should foster daily to be full AQ people besides gratitude?
Yes. So this goes in alignment with the fire horse energy, is to challenge yourself to take one bet every day. And a bet is defined as something that you do. It's an action that you take without knowing what the outcome is going to be. So it can be as small as like trying a different coffee shop than you normally do, or changing your order when you go to the coffee shop. It can be texting someone who was in your life previously that you haven't talked to in a while. You don't know how they're going to respond to you. It might be like choosing to show up to dinner with your mother and like do something different than you normally do, right? And so it's just this ask to experiment and play with taking a different route than you normally do, and to be the most full AQ person, and to also embody that sort of like action, confidence, courageous, bold energy of fire horse. We just need to start messing up our lives a little bit, like breaking free from the mold, doing things differently, taking a path that isn't the one that we've been on and like is highly tread by ourselves or other people. And so if you journal, if you're a journaling type, just ask yourself, what was that one bet that I could take every day? Or even in the morning, you can say to yourself, what's the bet I'm going to take? They can be big, they can be small, but eventually, even if you take lots and lots of little small bets, you will grow your capacity to take even bigger ones.
And Liz, you're the one who actually told me this before years ago, where you're like, just get a no, like just ask it. And it's okay if you get a no, but it's like, it could be as simple as ask if you can make a reservation there. And they always say no. If you get a no, great, you asked. And it's like, get really comfortable with just always asking for what you want.
Yes, exactly. We should be all ideally trying to get to like 100 no's as quickly as possible, right? Because that's like the breakthrough when yeses start to come. And so whenever I like get rejected, a book tour is like so much an exercise in rejection. You're pitching like all these press outlets, you're pitching all these bookstores and being like, do you want to have me? Do you want to write about me? And every time I got a no, I was like, great, 1 no down. I'm trying to get to 100. Let's keep going, because then the yeses will flow. So I think that's a great way of reframing it too.
I love that. Okay. So Liz, I want to say some affirmations together because we did this last time for the Karma of Success. There are so many things about being a full AQ that are just limiting self-beliefs, I think. So what are some affirmations we can all say together right now to start our full AQ journey?
Okay. So the first one is, I love change and change loves me.
Okay. Ready, guys?
I love change
and change loves me.
Okay, and then this one is going to go into the fire horse one too. This is a year I will remember for the rest of my life.
Ooh.
This is a year I will remember for the rest of my life.
Okay, and the last one, because also fire horse energy is not just about taking action. It's also just about being so generous too, because like this fire energy, I think we forget about this, but fire is not just about like doing it for yourself. It's doing it for your community and doing it for your people around you. So the last affirmation is, I have a lot to receive and I have just as much to give.
Ooh, okay, ready?
I have a lot to receive and I have just as much to give.
Woo! Thank you, Liz Tran.
Thank you for having
Thank you,
me.
everyone. Okay, wait. We're gonna do if anyone is comfortable to come up here and just say like a sentence or two of where you are and what archetype do you think you are, and then Liz is gonna try to help you walk you through how to best navigate using your archetype with the pathway that you are in your life. Is anyone comfortable in coming up and okay, Marissa, get up here. Okay, what archetype do you think you are first?
I think I am a combination of an astronaut and novelist, but I think leaning more towards the astronaut lately. The question I have for you is about forgiving yourself, because I feel like you're talking a lot about changing and sort of like if you're a puppy and your paws are too big for you and you're growing into it every day, and like surrounding yourself with new people, meeting new people who inspire you, and maybe those things that people made fun of you for or you felt bad for are now things that could be really helpful for you. So sort of like the idea of self-efficacy and like knowing you can do something by changing little things in your day and forgiving your past self.
I think that's beautiful. And I would even take it a step further and say like, not even just forgiving your past self, but really like thanking your past self for going through that to put you in that position now. Yeah. And I also think that those moments that we find like the hardest to look at for ourselves are the ones that we should like relish in and feel like you did that, baby. You're amazing. And that's actually part of like the fire horse energy too, is like, you've been building up to this point for 6 years. You've been preparing and planting seeds. And I think also as an astronaut, like that is part of this beautiful role that you play in the world, is that you're going to make steps, you know, like you're going to go for things that you want publicly, and maybe you're going to be a little embarrassed, right? Or it's not going to turn out the way that you thought, but it's so inspirational to other people. And so like in a way, like the astronaut plays this role to be extremely future oriented, to be going after what they want, to you know, not always have it go the way that you think it is, because sometimes the astronaut's just like too far forward in the future. Like you're already there in your mind, but it's going to take like everyone else like 3 years to catch up.
So can I ask one other thing? It's this idea of like, you're delusional.
Right.
And in your head, you're like, I know this can happen. And like, you know, you get it. I have the tendency to like speak really fast and excited about something, and it can come off. I mean, I don't want to use the word manic, but like, oh, like she, you know, that's not how it works. And I feel like maybe is it about surrounding yourself with the people that like encourage the delusion a little bit?
Yeah.
Like
100%.
Sophia, she definitely encourages my delusion.
It's 100% that. And then I will also say, because a lot of my clients are astronauts, and it's learning also how to really explain things step by step for the people who aren't astronauts. So you got to have your friends who also encourage the delusion, like 100%. And you also want to practice with someone who's really different from you, being like, I call it giving turn signals, where like you're already there at the destination. You're like laying on the beach, right? Yeah. But the other person's still at their house. They're like, how do I get there? And so you're like, okay, make a right turn, make a left turn. It's very slowly explaining your vision step by step by step, and taking people along on the journey with you. Because remember, like you want to have a lot of empathy for them, right? Because like you have this gift of being able to see the vision so clearly. And so in a way, like it is your responsibility to help like inspire them to also see that vision too.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Marissa. Thank you for coming up.
Wait, we had one right here. Come. So yeah, one or two sentences of what you're going through and what archetype you think you are, and then Liz will help you navigate. Come on, come over here. Don't be shy.
Hi.
Hi. So I read Karma to Success, and I did your vision essay, and I wrote names of people in my vision essay at the time, not knowing that that's my fiance over there. It was in my
Who's your
vision
fiance?
essay.
Okay. Oh my God, amazing. Wow.
Yeah, but he was just a friend at the time. I just put his name down in my vision essay as someone. Not as a love. He was just like there. So anyway, I just want to say like, but you know what was so wonderful about reading Karma to Success was it was about inward, and I feel like now having, and that was in 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And and now reading AQ, I actually said this year is outward, and I find that AQ is outward for me, but it's the inward part was the easy thing because I could retreat. And actually I took the AQ test. I'm an astronaut. So
I love it.
So I do feel like outward, like I feel like a calling for outward, but it's scaring me shitless, you know?
Yes.
Because there was so much magic I got out of Karma to Success that it's like made me, you know, feel the strength of the astronaut. And actually, when I read your book, I was like, well, if Liz Tran can write a book, I can write a book. Like,
Yes.
you know,
I love
kind of
that.
thing. So anyway, but still, like, I'm still going through the book. But it is definitely like even identifying with the astronaut, still feeling so afraid about it, you know?
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, because I feel like probably a lot of people in the room can identify with that. Like, it is really, really scary to put it outward and put it into the world. And I feel that. I actually think like writing this book was such a challenge for me because it was like very much about, like, I feel more comfortable in the interior world. And we're also coming out of the year of the snake, which is so much about that introspection, that reflection, that strategy, right? And so what I will say to you is that, especially as an astronaut, you already have everything that you need to be able to do this. And you also don't have to take any action until June 30th. So I don't know if that feels better, but for me, like, I feel like that too, where I'm just like, okay, let me sit with this, let me change. And once you have everything, like, I think this was the big realization. This is what we say in the Karma of Success, right? Yeah. Like, everything that you see in your mind then becomes reality. Like, people don't realize that membrane between interior and exterior is a lot softer than we think it is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's actually like not really that division between like interior and exterior. And so I think that know that everything that you're doing, like, that you're very comfortable with, like, you know, you manifested this beautiful person sitting here, right? Like, and he manifested you. And I think that's what it is like, it will happen naturally. You don't feel like you need to push yourself. And that's actually why we recognize that the year of the fire horse energy is here. It'll take us and carry us wherever we need to go. And we actually don't need to push too hard. It'll just happen very, very naturally.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Thank you. And congratulations.
Thank you.
It's so awesome.
When did you guys get engaged?
January 7th.
Wow. Woo, congratulations. Okay, we're going to wrap this up, but I want everyone to stand up if you have space. Do you have space? Everyone can stand up. And we're going to do just a collective prayer for Liz's birth in 2 days. Form a big circle here. If everyone can be connected in the back. Woo! Thank you, Liz Tran! Thank you, Liz Tran. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us today. Go meet someone you haven't met before. Have fun. Thank you, 929, and everyone. Happy Year of the Fire Horse.
Thank you for tuning in to Steward Podcast. If you found this conversation valuable, please share with friends and family who are also grappling with these complex questions. As Steward, we believe that understanding these challenges is the first step towards creating a more sustainable and joyful present and future. Take a moment to rate and review Steward Podcast wherever you listen, and you can also stay connected with us on Instagram at steward.media for more updates. See you next time.